Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to get started in just a sec here. We'll be taking questions toward the end. If you have questions while we're speaking, you can tweet them and just use the hashtag #HireToWin. So hashtag #HireToWin with your questions. I see some folks are still joining, but we'll go ahead and get started. Anyway, we've got a lot of great content to talk you through in regards to diversity today. So we'll go ahead and move right along. So you're going to be hearing two voices on the call today. Myself, I'm Tom Ventimiglia. I work on our talent solutions business at LinkedIn. And I'm joined by Neddy Perez, who is the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at Ingersoll Rand. And Neddy has quite an impressive bio. She's worked for the better part of the past 2 decades with global Fortune 500 organizations on their diversity initiatives. Before joining Ingersoll Rand, she worked for companies like National Grid, KPMG, Sodexo, and Shell Oil. She received a number of awards with regards to diversity in the workplace. She's also on the board of the nonprofit organization Society for Human Resource Management Foundation. And she's one of the founders of STEMconnector.org, which is a service that helps connect folks with programs in science, technology, engineering, and math. So quite an impressive bio. Neddy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tom. I'm really glad to be here with you.
Excellent. So we've got a handful of things that we want to talk through today. We're going to talk through some of the broader trends that we're seeing in the diversity space. We'll talk about what best-in-class organizations are doing, and then we'll talk about some things that you can do to actually put that stuff into practice inside of your organizations. And then I mentioned that we'll leave some time at the end for questions, so hopefully we'll have at least 15 minutes or so near the end to answer questions from you all. So we're doing it a little bit differently with the questions this time. If you have a question, just post on Twitter with the hashtag #HireToWin, and we'll pick some out at the end and get through as many of them as we can. So, Neddy, you've been working with corporations on their diversity strategy for some time now. We'd love for you to talk us through some of the major trends that you've been seeing in this space.
Sure, be happy to. And there's so many trends out there, but we tried to really boil it down to potentially 3 or 4 that are really going to hit the human resources community significantly over the next few years. One of my favorite topics I always talk about, which I think is going to significantly impact us as HR professionals, as diversity champions, as talent management champions, is the huge crunch that many corporations and the U.S. is really going to be facing around science, technology, engineering, and math talent. In particular, we know that there are a number of positions that are going to be created over the next few years that we unfortunately are not ready to fill, don't have the talent to fill. We're only graduating about 70,000 folks or so a year in the U.S. and even in the U.K., around 65,000 folks to fill positions in the science technology space.
Wow.
The other big challenge, Tom, is that even while corporations have poured in millions of dollars into STEM research and programs, we're still not really moving the needle with regards to high school graduates. If anything, we're seeing more young people not pursuing degrees in the math and sciences, and even with a workforce of almost 49% women, the percentage of women in the STEM fields is less than 20%. So these are all things that are going to really hit us hard because of the kinds of jobs that are going to be created in the future. And when I say the future, I'm talking about 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
So that's a mega area. But one of the other things that I think as diversity leaders and talent management leaders and HR professionals we need to keep pace of is the fact that we're finding the workforce dynamics really changing. We've got more women that will be entering the workplace. We also have global issues and global competition that is driving how we recruit talent and how do we retain talent. In addition, we're going to be seeing more and more minorities in the work environment. There are a number of states, Texas, Hawaii, New Mexico, California, that are now majority minority states. And these are really, this is really critical, because when you start to think about the fact that the U.S. Census Bureau announced just this past year that more minority babies are being born than non-minority babies, what you're going to see in the future is a very, very diverse workforce. And if the dropout rate in terms of education and college preparation continues, we're not going to have the talented, skilled workers that we really need to be able to continue to grow as a nation. And this is something that's really important. So as corporations and as corporate leaders, we need to be able to get ahead of some of these trends. Not to mention the fact, Tom, that we're seeing an aging population that's going to be retiring. Just between 2000 and 2011, the population that's over age 65 grew by 18%, which is 41 million plus people that are that are going to be looking at retiring. Granted, some people have delayed retirement because of our economic situation over the last few years, but as things begin to improve with the economy, we're going to see some major shifts, and that we're going to have a crunch in terms of available talent to fill jobs. So these are all really critical challenges. The other big trend that we're seeing within corporations is the fact that employees are really no longer loyal to their corporations. It's a huge struggle to find individuals that are looking to stay with corporations 10, 12, 15 years. That's just not the way that millennials and Gen Xers look at the kinds of companies they want to join. They want to make sure that the companies are socially conscious, but they also want to make sure that they're getting skills and developing skills that are going to enable them to continue to grow and develop and find other career opportunities. So when you start to think about the impact of employees that are looking at really more short-term lifespans with corporations, then you have to start thinking about the kinds of benefits you're offering, the kinds of career opportunities that you're offering, so that they stay enticed and engaged in the organization. So these are all really important. The other big shift globally that I think is going to impact corporations is the whole piece around immigration. With a mobile workforce, they're going to want to gain more experience globally. We're already seeing this happen in Europe, where in Germany, people are coming from Italy and Spain to go work in Germany, whose economic stability is stronger than some of those other countries. So places like Italy and Spain are saying, wait a second, Germany, you're taking our top talent from us. Similarly, we're seeing, brain drains happen in other parts of the world.
Wow. That's actually, that's really interesting. That actually aligns pretty closely with some of the challenges that we hear from the companies that we work with at LinkedIn, especially some of our larger, more global clients. That definitely rings true from my experience. So with that context, can you talk us through some things that you see best-in-class companies, including Ingersoll Rand, doing today to prepare for the trends and some of the challenges that you just talked about?
Sure, I'd be glad to. There's a little tool that I use. It's called the P-Triad. But what's behind this P-Triad, which focuses on people, partnerships, and publications, is really understanding, first and foremost, the company's core business strategy. Where is the company going to grow? What kind of talent does it need in the future? Where and what are our market goals and objectives in terms of our business overall growth? And so taking those things into context, then I look at, okay, what kind of workforce do we need? How do we leverage the people that are currently working for our company to make sure that they serve as ambassadors and promoting the brand of their organization, serving as sounding boards for some of our needs in future growth. And then looking at what kinds of partnerships are really going to help us to be successful in the future. Partnerships with universities, nonprofit organizations, or professional associations, looking even at junior college partnerships, and looking at ways that we could potentially develop relationships and programs that will help us to attract talent, retain talent, and also help grow our business. The other focus area for us is around publications. So how do we tell our story? And this particular model I've actually used in several of the organizations that I've worked at. So I'll give you a for instance. When I was working in the food industry, one of the things that we did was we knew that we needed a large percentage of managers to be able to sustain the work environment and to refresh our talent. So we partnered with Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities to create internship programs. They had a connection to over 2,500 colleges and universities.
Wow.
By partnering with that particular institution, we created internship programs that led to viable job creation that then resulted in us being able to diversify our management workforce. And then we actually ended up telling our story through other publications, which then helped increase our overall brand recognition.
Yeah. So you mentioned brand recognition around diversity specifically. So we talk to companies all day long about this stuff, and even specific to diversity, people wanting to build their talent brand among these diversity groups. And this is things that you can do on your LinkedIn company page, or if you're using our career page product today. We definitely encourage clients, if you're using LinkedIn for hiring and you've got a career page, use some of the space on that page to talk about your diversity initiatives and why this stuff is so important.
Well, not only to talk about your diversity initiatives, but also to help promote some of the employee resource groups that you've got in place, or help to connect individuals that have been part of your company that may be less, but are potential rehires, because that is a big trend, is looking for ways to establish alumni associations or connections to your particular company. So quite a few companies that I know have done that.
Yeah, and I've heard you speak about how critical it is to have leadership buy-in on initiatives like this, specifically around diversity. What's the best way to ensure that you can get executive level support on your strategy?
Well, probably the best way, Tom, is that you really have to make sure that your overarching strategy connects with the goals and objectives of the company. Where are you growing your business? But also you need to make sure that you're connecting your strategy to things like, what is the mission vision of your organization? And as you're building your goals and objectives, how did those help support those objectives? In addition, you want to make sure that you're not building your strategy in a vacuum. So getting leadership buy-in, having regular meetings with your CEO or with other members of the executive leadership team, or involving them in some of the activities that you're doing in your organization around driving diversity is important. So for instance, at Ingersoll Rand, all of our executive leaders are linked to one of our employee resource groups. They are the champions and advocates and sponsors of each of the employee resource groups we've established. But we also partner with other folks in the talent organization, in community relations, or our foundation folks, as well as our Center for Energy Efficiency, to make sure that the things that we're doing help support the overarching goals and objectives of the company. The best thing I can tell you is you've got to really be grounded in your company's strategy in order to be able to build trust and credibility. You want to be able to go after some of the low-hanging fruit out there also, opportunities for you to partner through programs and activities that provide the company visibility, but also allow your employees to really tell their own story about why they're at your organization and how they're helping to make a difference in the organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you want the diversity strategy to kind of be in service of the broader company strategy. That's the stuff that's going to click with C-levels.
Completely.
Right. So we've talked about kind of setting the strategy and thinking about managing change and getting executive buy-in. Something we talk about a lot at LinkedIn is measurement. Obviously, as a pretty data-focused organization, that's something that's really important to us. How can organizations think about measuring the success of their diversity initiatives?
I've worked with some companies that have developed incredible metrics, measurement tools, some that have been 30, 40 pages in length. But to be quite honest, one of the things that I've found consistently is that the simpler the metrics, the better it is. And I tend to just focus on three metrics organizationally, particularly when I'm looking at talent movements. One of them is around the percentage of diverse candidates. So who are you bringing in the door? How are they coming in? But looking at the slate of candidates. Then what is the turnover rate among all groups, but also particularly among diverse groups? If you're hiring someone into an organization and they're leaving within 30 days, and you see a consistent pattern within the diversity group, you need to be stopping and asking what's going on, because there's usually a story behind that. And then also taking a look at the percentage of internal promotions of diverse slates. So how are you moving? How are you growing your female population? How are you growing talent from other parts of the world and rotating them to give them long-term developmental opportunities that will help them strengthen their leadership capabilities? So are you, moving talent from Asia to the U.S. or from Asia to Europe or Europe to the U.S.? Those are really important, especially if you've got a global corporation that you're part of. You want to make sure that as you build that pipeline out for the future, that you've got the kind of talent that is well-versed in having had one or two global assignments before they take on a senior executive role or senior leadership role.
Yeah, I love that these are like explicit kind of objective data points that people can measure with numbers and track over time. Do you find that one or two of these are more important than the others, or do you view them all as equally important?
I will tell you there are a lot of other measurements out there, but these to me are the three most critical ones to take a look at.
Okay. Yeah, LinkedIn, people like to say that you can't manage what you can't measure. So I think it's really important to have a framework around stuff like this that actually quantifies it, especially for
the other thing
leadership.
is, Tom, if you don't measure what you're trying to accomplish, then it's harder to get buy-in, particularly from the C-suite. They want to know that you're making progress.
Yeah. So we've talked through best practices, and what you've just covered is great in terms of what other companies are doing in terms of their diversity strategy, and I think folks on the phone will find this really useful. What are some things that people can do to put these into action inside their own organizations today, like after the call today?
So aside from knowing and being grounded in your strategy, I think it's really important to understand what the gaps are that are out there in the marketplace. Look at your affirmative action plans, work with your talent organization to make sure that if there are any gaps, that you're working to close those gaps. Look at putting in place partnerships around workforce planning that are going to help you close those gaps. I'll give you an example. One of the organizations that I worked with in the past, we knew that we had a huge gap with regards to women, and in particular, even now, with Ingersoll Rand, one of the things we're looking at is our female talent in Europe. We're trying to grow it. We want to make sure we're creating a supportive environment, not only to grow the organization, but to grow the talent of the future. And so in that particular situation, we knew that we needed to create a program that was going to help to provide cultural understanding for the women to learn how to navigate the organization, learn how to position themselves for growth, look at their talent skills, where we could develop those, but also look at how we could provide exposure to them to senior leadership by working on projects or initiatives that would resonate with the company. And so what we found was that as we rolled that particular program out, within 1 year's time, we had 100% of retention of the graduates of the program, and 60% of them got promoted. Not to mention the fact that the people that were serving as their mentors also stayed involved with their career development, and so some of them have now become sponsors and advocates. And we had our first female going into the operations side of the house as a result of this particular program.
Wow, that's awesome.
It wasn't that the talent wasn't there, Tom. It was there, but it was a matter of connecting the dots for people and providing them the opportunity and the skills they needed to be visible. But aside from looking at things like that, you want to ask yourself too, what are the trends that are on the horizon? All of us are, challenged with the fact that over the course of the next 2 years, more millennials, more Gen Xers are going to be in the work environment, and that we've got aging workforces to deal with, and that is going to have a huge impact on all of us. The expectations are different, so the tools, the resources, the kinds of programs that we offer are going to be really critical. So I know that LinkedIn and a few other technology companies offer great flex work opportunities, but also provide unique benefits. I've heard a few providing pet services because of their younger workforce. But you have to really look at the culture of your organization and then look at what's on the horizon in order to be able to create some programs that are innovative and creative that are going to map to the needs of your people. And the best thing you can do is connect with your employee resource groups and leverage them to get input on what kinds of programs are going to resonate with them.
And I've heard you speak about a specific challenge you faced, I think when you were at National Grid. Do you want to elaborate that on a little bit? We were just chatting about it earlier.
Sure. So, one of the things at Grid, like a lot of other gas and electric utilities that are out there, they've had a very large workforce, and it's unfortunately an aging workforce. And so one of the things that we really needed to get creative with at National Grid was look at what kinds of partnerships do we need to put in place to be able to continue to grow and provide services to our customers while at the same time managing our talent needs. And so we tackled this in a few different ways. One was to look at how we could increase interest levels of folks that are in the college and university level by rolling out a STEM awareness program to attract interns in the space of the engineering field. But then we also looked at the fact that with our aging workforce, many of our folks weren't ready to retire, were thinking about it, but some of those that were planning to retire, we engaged them in serving as mentors to folks that were just coming into the organization. And that created a really good partnership between the folks that were in the organization that had tons of experience and provided an opportunity for us to transfer their knowledge to incoming workers. The other thing we did was we also looked at establishing a consulting partnership with folks that were leaving the organization because they were retiring. So basically they would retire from the company, take some time off, and then based on their particular skill sets and our needs, we would hire them back as contingent workers.
Wow, as like mentors. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's worked out really well, and I know that quite a few companies are looking at doing things like that as well.
Yeah, and talking about like needing to understand the big picture to get buy-in on something like that, I imagine you have to know the broader organization's goals like pretty inside and out.
Very much so.
Awesome. So what else? I think we wanted to talk about internal talent and leveraging the resources that companies have within their organizations today.
Yeah, in the diversity field, many corporations, many Fortune 500s have employee resource groups or affinity groups. Some are even calling them now business resource groups. And basically these are groups that were originally started up to help serve as advocates for diversity efforts within the organization. But these employee resource groups have really become great tools for delivering awareness building programs in the company, professional development programs, as well as helping to onboard new employees and helping those employees to navigate the corporate culture of the organization. The other great thing is that folks that are part of these employee resource groups can serve as really great advocates for your company through recruiting initiatives that the organization might have,
Yep.
and even if they've left the organization, leveraging them through alumni associations that are designed to help promote your organization. The other thing is really working with your talent acquisition organization to partner with these employee resource groups to create innovative approaches to uncovering new talent. One of the things we've done at Ingersoll Rand over the course of the last year is we established a partnership with our talent acquisition folks, and we identified individuals that would serve on the steering committees of the employee resource groups so that our talent acquisition efforts are directly linked with our employee resource groups. This way, the employee resource groups have an opportunity to provide input on potential new areas of uncovering talent. But in addition, it provides our talent acquisition folks an opportunity to better learn and understand some of the diversity challenges that the employees might face in a particular community trying to connect with us.
Yeah, and I think, so when we think about this stuff, I think it's important to think about online components of these initiatives as well. So we talk about at LinkedIn, obviously helping people leverage their networks, and that's certainly relevant for companies as well. I mean, thinking about leveraging networks, products like LinkedIn Groups or kind of flagship LinkedIn Recruiter product can help you identify really niche groups of people on LinkedIn. So do you find that online is a huge component of this? Or?
I think I recently read a statistic that said that 80% of corporations today have some kind of online presence.
Wow.
And so I think it's really critical. As a matter of fact, I'm here in Chicago attending one of the world's largest HR conferences. 15,000 HR professionals from all over the world.
I know you stepped out to be with us today.
And so I can tell you that just going through the exposition hall, they're probably close to 25%, if not 30%, of the exhibitors that are there have got our online corporations that are using some vehicle or form of social media, but also when you start to think about things like the compensation programs and reward recognition programs, all of those things are online. So it's really critical, especially with Gen Xers and millennials, and even baby boomers being online, to really find a way to connect with them. And the best way to do it is having a strong online strategy and presence that provides an opportunity not just to have a stagnant page, but a way to interact with folks. And I know I'm a personally strong fan of LinkedIn because I've used it for so long, but just the kinds of emails that I get from people that are either looking at our own company and are looking to understand the culture of the organization before they make a decision to apply for a position, or they're looking for, they may have a specialty skill and they need some guidance on how to connect with our company.
Yeah.
So I think social media provides a really great way to connect with prospective recruits and or even to help retain talent that may be in your own organization.
Yeah, that two-way dialogue is so important. I mean, we're using Twitter for the questions today, and there's obviously things like LinkedIn and Facebook that can help facilitate things like this. Speaking of kind of online initiatives, I've heard you mention professional diversity networks online specifically, so networks on the internet that are focused specifically around diversity hiring. Are there some that you've worked with in the past?
Sure. So actually, when I was with one of the major accounting firms, one of the things that I did was actually work with ISBANO, which was linked to an organization called the Association of Latino Professionals in Accounting, which is also one of the largest accounting associations out there. And what we found was that strong partnership with ISBANO provided us with an opportunity to connect with prospective candidates online, but also even potential clients that were online. It provided us a feeder pool to be able to promote jobs as well, but not just to one organization, but rather to several other organizations that were Hispanic focused. One of the areas right now that I know is really popular with corporations is around military hires. There's so many military veterans coming back that are incredibly talented, and some of them have worked in the procurement logistics space, and so companies are constantly looking for, how do I connect? Well, military to career is a really great resource of being able to connect with a broader military population. So I think working with professional diversity networks helps significantly. You know, like PDN is also involved with groups like the NAACP and the Urban League and the Black MBAs, feeder pool.
Yeah.
So that kind of opportunity to connect with a broader group of people that are going to see your message and hear about your organization is really important, especially in today's age where everything's really driven by technology.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned iHispano and Military to Career by name. Those are two sites that are part of a network that's operated by this company called the Professional Diversity Network. That is an organization that LinkedIn actually partnered with a couple of months ago. So we've got solutions for the clients that we service to help them leverage the Professional Diversity Network and all of the different groups that they service online as well. So it's a really powerful offering. What about iHispano and the Professional Diversity Network was so attractive, other than kind of the stuff that you just mentioned?
So, you know, one of the things we were talking about a little bit earlier was that if you have a social media presence, you want to make sure it's not stagnant online. And what I've found worked well for us at the accounting firm that I was at was that it provided a two-way opportunity to connect with people. So it wasn't just about posting roles, but rather it was also about getting messages out and receiving messages in. That provided that great agility to connect with people. And I think one of the things we did was we actually hosted a dialogue to talk about professional presence as Latinos online. So how do you leverage your online presence to build your career as well? So we weren't just posting information, but we were also able to leverage it to host a dialogue, much like we were doing today with some of the people that registered for this event.
Yeah, that's great. We've been good friends with the folks at Professional Diversity Network the past few months, so it's awesome to hear kind of real-life examples of people leveraging their products with great success. So with that, we'll kind of recap the kind of core areas that we talked about today. We spoke through Neddy's, which is called the P-Triad framework, and how important it is for your diversity strategy to really be in service of the broader strategy of your organization, and how critical that is to getting leadership buy-in. We talked about measurement. Again, you can't manage what you can't measure. And tracking the success of your diversity initiatives by looking at things like the percentage of candidates that you're bringing in that are diverse, their turnover rate, how frequently those folks are being promoted, tracking those things for your organization more broadly, but specific to diversity as well. And then finally, we talked about leveraging the internal talent that you have today. We know that your employees are your best ambassadors. We talk about that at LinkedIn all day long when we're working with companies. Your kind of greatest asset on LinkedIn as an organization is just all of your employees that you have with LinkedIn profiles, and being able to capitalize on their networks and connections is so critical. And then also professional diversity networks. There's these groups online that can really help you do things like branding and getting your jobs in front of people that are diverse, whether they're looking for jobs or not. And again, the company that LinkedIn partnered with recently, the Professional Diversity Network, we talked about them in detail. So with that, we're going to move to some questions. So I know that I've been kind of following the tweets. Again, if you have a question that you'd like to ask myself or Neddy, just tweet it with the hashtag #HireToWin. We've got a couple queued up here, and I'll kind of pick them off as they come in. So we've got a question. Would the older worker, kind of 50 plus, be considered a diversity group to consider? What do you think?
Yes, they would be. Actually, they're a viable component of the workforce. I think it's really important, particularly because they have quite a bit of knowledge within an organization or specialty skills. And when you have younger workforce coming in, they don't necessarily have the intuitiveness, the experience that an older worker might have. And so it's really important when you're managing your workforce to be looking at how are you retaining individuals that are not only coming into the organization, they're college graduates, but are also individuals that have been with your organization for a long period of time or who have expertise in a particular field. You don't want to lose that knowledge, so it's really important to create programs that engages the whole workforce and all of the generations.
Yeah, and I found that diversity, the word diversity means different things to different organizations. A lot of people, when they hear the word diversity, their brain goes first to ethnic diversity. But we talk a lot about, so in addition to different age groups, things like veterans and LGBT.
Well, the other thing is not just these particular groups, but also thinking about diversity of thought, style of communication, how where you've grown up may be very different from what your birth origin is. So these are all things that you need to take into account when you're thinking about creating a long-term diversity initiative that's going to engage your workforce.
Great. We've got another question. This is actually a good one. So we've talked a lot about kind of diversity in the broader organization, but this question is around the diversity of your actual HR team in maybe specific to talent acquisitions. How diverse is the HR team and even the TA team at Ingersoll Rand?
Actually, our TA team is pretty diverse. We've got representation of various groups, and that's one of the things, too, that we wanted to make sure we engage them in partnering with our employee resource groups to increase their knowledge and understanding of other significant ethnic groups or gender groups that we have in place.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about leveraging their own networks. If they're bringing people on board, having that diversity on that team is critical. So I've got another one here. It says, does every company need a chief diversity officer? So I imagine companies that are not big global enterprises probably don't have specific resources allocated to diversity. So I guess more broadly, for companies that don't have a formal diversity program, how can they go about trying to incorporate these programs into their hiring strategy?
Sure. So, the role of chief diversity officers really varies from company to company. What I'm seeing, a lot of companies are actually leveraging their talent development folks in the space of diversity and inclusion, primarily because when you're going out to attract talent, you want to make sure that you get the best talent and that you're uncovering that talent wherever that talent may be. In terms of resources in developing your diversity strategies, there are a tremendous number of them out there in the marketplace. What I would tell you is, as a member of the Society of Human Resource Management, it's probably one of the best resources I've ever found. We publish a number of studies and share best practices around creating diversity recruiting strategies, creating diversity initiatives within organizations, talent development programs, even around supplier diversity. So I would say if you're looking at building or starting a diversity initiative within your organization, I would check out the Society of Human Resource Management. The majority of the information, if you're a member of the society, is free, but there are also a number of publications that are available through the SHRM bookstore. And also, if you're looking at supplier diversity in particular in your company, I would reach out to the National Minority Supplier Diversity Council, which is one of the largest organizations out there to build vendor relations with minority groups. There are quite a few others, but they're one of the larger ones.
That's great. I've got another question. This one is from @JYK53. I'll try to read the names as these are coming in. So they say they're actually looking for a specific example of how to use LinkedIn for diversity recruitment. So I don't know if you've got personal stories that you can share. If not, I can kind of so I can talk through how we advise companies to do this. So there's a couple ways. We mentioned things like Recruiter and Groups on one of the earlier slides, but on LinkedIn, there's groups. I think the earlier slide said there was nearly 3,000 groups that were organized around specific diversity groups. So there's hundreds of thousands, I think actually millions of groups on LinkedIn. There's groups for just about anything, but you can imagine groups like the National Black MBA Association, the National Hispanic MBA Association, et cetera, have groups created on LinkedIn. And if you're looking to hire folks that are diverse, you can join those groups and make sure you're sharing your jobs into those groups when you post them on LinkedIn.
So along those lines, Tom, one of the things I've done, whether in the energy sector, the food sector, or now in the manufacturing sector, is that if there are critical positions that our organization is trying to source for, what I've done is actually gone in and posted job opportunities for specific jobs on groups just like you mentioned. So I think those are the best sources. I think I belong myself to close to 30 groups.
Yeah.
It's hard to manage them sometimes, but I love just getting the feeds and the dialogue.
Yeah.
It also gives me an idea to keep ahead of some of the trends that are happening. But in terms of being able to leverage LinkedIn, what I've done is really post specific jobs to boards, depending on which boards I'm involved in. And that's usually generated some really good leads, regardless of the industry I've been in.
I mean, this partnership that we just started with the Professional Diversity Network a couple weeks ago, that basically allows clients to, with the flip of a switch, have all of the jobs that they're posting on LinkedIn also be posted on all of PDN sites. So that's kind of a turnkey solution. If you're thinking about getting your jobs that you're posting on LinkedIn in front of more diverse candidates, that's a really turnkey one.
And there you're looking at potentially, a 28 million hit of potential candidates.
Yeah, it's the largest collection of diverse professionals on the web, so it's a great resource for our clients. Okay, I've got a couple more questions that are coming in here. This one is from @Torin_Ellis, looking for a key strategy that Neddy Perez has leveraged to secure executive, HR, or marketing buy-in to increase or pursue diversity initiative. I guess the question is really, how do you get kind of executive buy-in for maybe budget to pursue diversity initiatives?
Okay. What I would tell you is you really got to understand your business strategy. So if I'll give you for instance, if you're looking at growing your sales workforce in order to reach let me back up.
Yeah.
If your organization has on its goals and objectives to drive sales, and you know that as a management professional or HR professional, then you need to look at where and how are you developing your sales workforce, what is the makeup of that sales workforce, and if it's not diverse, then look at how do you build a strategy to attract sales folks that are going to help you uncover niche markets. That is going to get the CEO's attention. If you can bring in revenue and help him or her answer a key, strategy question, they're going to, buy into you. I'm really fortunate. I'll tell you, I worked with a number of Fortune 5, but I've also consulted with some, and this has been a constant challenge for diversity practitioners. The ones that I've found that have done a really great job are the ones that have really built a good relationship with their CEO, their CHRO, their Chief Human Resource Officer, and have looked at where are there some ways that we can drive business growth. Even in my own business strategy at Ingersoll Rand, one of the areas of focus that I've got is around how to create market connectivity. So I know that my CEO is very committed because as he interviewed me for the role, he had already made inclusion and diversity one of the 3 key business strategies, and part of it is because of his own experiences as a leader. And so I'm really happy to have already had a CEO that was, got it. But if you don't have a CEO who gets it, then it's really critical that you link your inclusion strategies for how you're going to drive business growth in your organization, especially nowadays when there's so much competition out there, and businesses really have to grow in order to, sustain themselves.
Yeah, I think that goes right back to what we were talking about earlier, too, with understanding the broader company goals. I mean, thinking about the CEO is measuring his own success every quarter, and then how can you, support him?
Yeah, if you can help him answer to his or her board of directors, you're right. Yeah.
Great. So I've got another specific question. We'll take maybe one or two more questions here. So this one, I don't have the name of the person that it's from, but it says, what are some performance goals that you've seen incorporated for leaders around diversity and inclusion? So we talked about 3 specific measurement points earlier that you find are most useful, but are there metrics that you find companies are using that are successful, or even metrics that people might be using that are not useful?
So a couple of the companies that I worked with, both in the finance sector and food service sector, we did a really good job of linking diversity and inclusion to performance management goals. So basically linking rewards, whether they be bonuses or some type of incentive pay, to a leader's goals or objectives based on the diversity of the group, based on their ability to participate or engage in diversity initiatives with the company, or even to uncover new markets of opportunity as a result of looking at diversity factors to drive growth in the organization. So if you are looking to start out small, because maybe you don't have the buy-in, the best thing that you can do is work with your talent management organization and your HR leadership to identify what are some of the criteria or measures that you would like your leadership team to be taking into account, whether it be number of diverse slates that they're looking at, or having them actively involved with an employee resource group, or getting involved in some way or aspect with an inclusion effort that you've got going on in the company.
Got it. So we'll do 2 more quick ones. So the question for Neddy again, so what's been the biggest challenge that you faced inside an organization when you were advocating for a more formalized diversity program?
Well, I think we mentioned this earlier, that it's getting CEO or executive leadership team buy-in.
So important.
But if you really link that to your business strategy, I don't think in today's marketplace that if someone is fairly savvy, they won't get it. It's pretty understandable. I mean, you've got competition happening all over the world, corporations trying to keep pace with driving sales and productivity. And so the best companies are those that have a truly engaged workforce.
And what would you say so I've heard companies say that they think of diversity as a luxury. Like they say that we're moving so fast right now, we don't even have time to think about diversity. We just try to hire as many people as we can. That's coming from leadership.
Yeah, I know. It's out there. Actually, I would probably tell them they probably need to start watching Fareed Zakaria on Global VPS. He's one of my favorite folks. Or to look at some of the work that the Clinton Global Initiative is focusing on, and also to listen to some of the things that some of the newscasters are covering in terms of immigration challenges, et cetera. You have to. In today's marketplace, we're so connected around the globe. You have to know what's going on. You have to be able to recruit solid talent, and that talent is going to come from all over the place. There's not just one single strategy that you can use. Not like in the past where you would go to just one particular college or university to get your particular talent pool. You really need to look at diverse campuses in order to pull that talent. There are also a number of studies out there that show that the more diverse your organization is, the greater productivity you will have. As a matter of fact, while at the SHRM conference, I had an opportunity to hear the former Secretary of State speak, Hillary Clinton, and one of the things that she spoke about was how it's her personal mission now to really go around the world and try and provide opportunities for championing for women in different parts of the world. And the reason for that is that The World Bank, a number of world forums have published studies that show that when women are part of the workforce in underserved communities or are educated, that they come back and are able to create greater productivity and enhance that particular country's ability to generate revenue. And I am going to state this number, I might be off by a few million, but or percentage. But one of the things that she shared was that if we in the U.S. even engaged more women in leadership roles in the corporate space, that we would be able to increase our overall productivity by over 28%. That's a pretty significant amount. And she equated it to growing our overall GDP, gross national product, or to 9%. That's pretty significant. So when you think about, can a company in today's marketplace afford not to have diversity? No, they can't. You're going to miss out on creating new products, rethinking products that you have, and uncovering market niches where you can place those products. And you're going to miss out on a whole richness of dialogue that comes with growing the talent in the organization and retaining. Gen X and millennials, they want to work in corporations where it's more diverse.
Totally. Yeah, it's so important for the demographics of the employee base at a company to be reflective of the demographics of the population they're serving.
Completely. And or the communities that they're part of, right? Yeah.
And so we'll take, I've got one last one. This is from @CGEYER. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. CGEYER. She's asking, can you repeat the name of the group that you mentioned as the #1 source of diverse professionals? So we were speaking specifically earlier about the Professional Diversity Network, colloquially known as PDN. The Professional Diversity Network is what we were speaking about earlier. It's a good segue into our kind of closing slide here. If you're interested in our new PDN solution that we're offering to LinkedIn clients, reach out to your LinkedIn account executive or relationship manager, and they can get you some more information. Like I said, it's pretty cool, really turnkey way to get the jobs that you're posting on LinkedIn in front of the whole host of diversity sites that PDN operates and continues to build out. And again, there's a survey link at the bottom of this last slide here, so you'll probably get this in an email as well. But it's super helpful to hear your feedback. You know, we've got a lot of tweets that we'll read through, more than the ones that we talked through today. But the surveys are really helpful, so next time we do one of these, we can make sure that it's really useful for everyone. And with that, we'll wrap it up. I think we're ending a few minutes early, so we'll give everyone 7 minutes back this afternoon. But thanks for joining us. Neddy, thank you so much I know you stuck out of the conference to come over here today. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd.